old story. Boy finds girl, boy loses girl, girl finds boy. Boy forgets girl, boy remembers girl. And girl dies in a tragic blimp accident over the Orange Bowl on New Year's Day.
Good year?
No, the worst.
Hi everyone and welcome to Priority Holder, and today I'll be playing Mono Black Chthonian Scam in the Timeless format. Now the card of the day is Chthonian Nightmare. So I did a poll recently to see which MH3 enchantments people wanted to see in a video, and this one won quite decisively. So this is a 2-mana enchantment that when it enters it gives us 3 energy, and we can pay X energy and sack a creature to reanimate a creature from our graveyard with mana value X at sorcery speed. And so this is a callback to the powerhouse recurring nightmare, except this one just uses energy. So what we're trying to do is have plenty of sacrifice fodder and potent targets to bring back and just grind people out by looping this over and over and over. And what happens to be a really great target in Timeless right now, but Grief. So this turns out to be a really good scam package right here, because we can run Grief and we can run some Undying effects to good effect. It just works really well in the shell, and we can bring Grief back later with Nightmare as well. But yeah, Grief, we can pitch cast it or bring it back later. It's really strong in this deck, and I promise not all my decks will be scam decks, just these last few. I just have a lot front loaded. There'll be more variety coming down the pipe. And what is really important is that we always need to be sacrificing our creatures, so it helps to have creatures that come into play with 2 bodies. So Marionette Apprentice does that, and also was like a sort of another win condition. Another one is Orcish Bowmasters, comes into play with 2 bodies, and 2 creatures allows you to like bring one of these things back, then all of a sudden to be able to start looping Nightmare even more times. And I mean, who knew Orcish Bowmasters was actually a good card? This is amazing. I'm discovering this right now. And we have some 1-drops that die into treasures, mostly to vault us up to 1 ring mana or Sheoldred or Grief. So that's why those are in there. Not a lot of self-mill because we have a lot of self-sacrifice. And I have to mention our MDFCs to help feed the Grief. Leaning way more towards Boggart Trawler here since we're such a creature-centric deck. And definitely need to shout out Accursed Marauder. Maybe goes under some people's radar since it's just a combo. It's an absolute powerhouse. It makes the opponent sack non-token creatures, so you can usually cut right to the important things. And once you start looping this, like, you can really grind people out. I've been very impressed with this card. I love this deck. Let's jump into some games. This is a pretty great hand. I mean, you were never sad about seeing Dark Ritual in your opener. Typically in hands like this, I don't like to pitch cast Grief. I just like to wait for the turn 2 Dark Ritual assisted hard cast Grief. So that's what we're going for with this hand. Doesn't seem profitable to use Dark Ritual on any of our other cards. So here comes the turn 2 Grief. And let's see what we're battling against. And the opponent has actually a very strong hand. I thought a long time about this decision because I was very uncertain as to what to take. And I can understand an argument for any of these 5 cards. I end up taking Guide of Souls just to stop like a powerful like double spell turn with it. But honestly, like, their hand is stacked. So we're just in sort of trouble right now. Aether Hub into Amped Raptor is a really bad scenario unfolding for us. So we spent so much resources on Grief only for them to get basically a free spell off Amped Raptor and flage it down. So not to mention they have it waiting in the graveyard for them. So that went pretty horrible. And this is me trying to get fancy. And my mistake here is I didn't toggle full control soon enough. You could see I tried to flip it on basically probably just like milliseconds too late. I was trying to sacrifice it to Phyrexian Tower with its ability on the stack and double spell, so I think that was a timing, full control timing error for me. But meanwhile, we're getting slapped by Ragavan, and they exile a Chthonian Nightmare, which luckily they can't play, but they follow up with an Ocelot Pride. Red-White has gotten a lot stronger since MH3, and so you could see the opponent has just like a lot of great cards. And I've also featured a really strong Red-White deck recently. Now this is an auto-tapper mistake on my end. I didn't quite keep track of what it was using. Going for the 1/1 counter there just to make sure they can't kill it with Play with Fire and I could still block Ocelot Pride, but I really should have left Phyrexian Tower up. However, the opponent ends up finding the Galvanic Discharge, and now Ocelot Pride is going to be able to start going off. At least with Phyrexian Tower up, we could have blocked, sacked, and prevented the life gain. But now here come the cats, and they're getting life and energy on top of that. Now we do finally find our own copy of Chthonian Nightmare, and I don't always show all my graveyard checking, but this deck, it's like exceptionally relevant. Like, that's all we're doing the whole time is pulling stuff out of the graveyard. So I'm always trying to make sure I'm mindful of what I have in there. So we're playing Chthonian Nightmare, and this is the reason stuff like, well, obviously Orcish Bowmasters is really good, but Marionette Apprentice is also good. So I'm going to bring that back first. The reason being is that Marionette Apprentice creates 2 creatures. We already have a Phyrexian Tower, so we're scrying that to the bottom. And because it creates extra creatures, it means we can play Chthonian Nightmare again. So this time, definitely making the servo. I'm going to play Chthonian Nightmare again. So it's helpful to have creatures that bring extra creatures into play. Now, unfortunately, the opponent has Play with Fire to cut our fun a little bit short. Now that change, I was going to bring back Accursed Marauder and start grinding through their non-tokens, but given that they just killed our Marionette Apprentice, and you could see I thought about it for a while, eventually decided, you know what, I need to build up the creature count, and also it provides a blocker at least for Ocelot Pride, though the opponent will be able to gain life in other ways. So decided to go for Marionette Apprentice round 2 and move on with our lives. Holding on to Boggart Trawler because they have a Flage in the graveyard, and it seems like hard casting the Trawler is going to be very important. Here comes Ragavan, and there you go. So the opponent still gained life, so they get the Ocelot Pride trigger, but we at least held off an attack. Opponent has Philia up at flash speed. Orcish Bowmasters is absolutely beautiful right here. They have a lot of X1s, so it's going to do some great work right here. Definitely going to kill Ocelot Pride first. It's about to get out of hand. There's not many things you would kill ahead of a Ragavan, but we have a lot of blockers. I'm going to hard cast Boggart Trawler here just to prevent the Flage. They're actually right on the cusp of escaping it, and that's just going to be a big problem. So it seems very worthwhile to exile their graveyard. And I'm feeling really good at this point. We have a Chthonian Nightmare in hand. The opponent does have a lot going for them, though, so they've already banked 3 energies, so that means Guide of Souls can start angelifying things. So opponent's going to send in a Thalia and Ragavan. So they're going to use Guide of Souls to get a Monkey Angel. Definitely going to trade with Thalia, like it's just going to tear apart our tokens, and anyway, but we do have to eat a Ragavan hit right here. And nightmare scenario unfolding here, and not the Chthonian Nightmare. Opponent has stolen a 1 ring off the top of our deck, which is really, really bad. Now, at least we get a Bowmasters trigger out of it. Like, they're going to have to deal with Bowmasters to continue their ring usage. But not only would we have loved to have the ring, but it's exceptionally strong in their deck with all their cheap plays and their life gain just to counter it. So, it's gonna be tough, but anyway, I'm going to start generating some mana with the Phyrexian Tower. That is a very useful scry. We do not want any more lands at this point, and this is where we get to Chthonian Nightmare grind right here. We're just going to try and grind them out with our Chthonian Nightmare loops. So, gonna bring back Accursed Marauder. We're gonna try and eat up all of their non-tokens right now. So sacrifice the servo, making sure to sacrifice the Marauder so that it ends up in the graveyard so that we can rebuy it. So you have to be conscious of which things you want in and out of the graveyard. If Ragavan wasn't so strong, we might have been bringing back Bowmasters to shoot things down. In this case, we're going to bring back Accursed Marauder twice to keep killing things off. And both our other creatures seem to be better. Not only that, but we're chiseling them away with Marionette Apprentice also. Like, that's part of the power of that card. Alright, so opponent gets dinged by the 1 ring. Guide of Souls. And oh man, that's really bad for us. So they have an answer for Bowmasters. Not to mention, like, we just put a bunch of stuff in their graveyard that's gonna help them escape Flage at some point. So Marionette Apprentice chipping away at them, but this means that they can use the ring without any abuse from us, which is pretty bad. So the opponent finds an unstable amulet. So the card advantage train keeps going over there, and you know, we have our own forms of card advantage with Chthonian Nightmare. And then they have Static Prison on the other side, which is very strong. That means we also have to be conscious about that and make sure Chthonian Nightmare is basically always in our hand in this matchup, so they don't snipe it from us. That's different when you're playing against black decks. You're going to want it on the battlefield, so you have to pay attention to that. Alright, so what I'm going to do is bring back Orcish Bowmasters. For the similar reason we brought back Apprentice earlier, is that Bowmasters brings 2 creatures into play, and it's going to allow us to do more loops with Chthonian Nightmare. So we're going to replay Nightmare, and the question is what to bring back now, because we still have Phyrexian Tower up. We could bring back Marionette Apprentice, but aside, it's better to just not mess around and just get rid of their Guide of Souls. Okay, so now we're left with the Bowmasters in play, and Phyrexian Tower activation up also. So here comes Static Prison. We get dinged a little bit. Alright, so they're going to grab Bowmasters. Now, this turns out to be the most consequential decision of the whole game, and I spent a lot of time thinking about it, because it will tax their energy if we leave it under there. And this is me checking my graveyard just to see what sort of combinations we have going. I end up deciding to sacrifice it to Phyrexian Tower. I decide it's too powerful in our graveyard, and there is the chance we'd get it for free eventually, but if they spike another Guide of Souls, we're never seeing that Bowmasters again. So, but you know, once again, they take care of Bowmasters, and they're just being able to just draw cards unimpeded with the one ring. Not to mention their unstable amulets. Now, this is a very puzzling reveal right here, that they have Archive Trap in their deck. Let me know in the comments if you understand that. I don't know if it's just there to purely enable Flage. It doesn't make any sense to me. I guess they can pitch it to like Fable if it's not good, but that's the only use case I could think of right now. Now, drawing Orcish Bowmasters is absolutely monumental right here. Like, incredibly good for us. And this is what I was talking about, the decision last turn about sacking Bowmasters. Being able to have a second one in play means it's unlikely that they're going to be able to get rid of both of them before activating the ring. Not out of the question, but we're going to try and make their life as difficult as possible, because we want to try and tax the ring. Not to mention, Flage is about to be able to be escaped, which is like an easy way they can take down one Bowmasters. And so what we're going to do with our next Nightmare loop is we're going to pull out good old Boggart Trawler, sacrificing the army token, just to nuke their graveyard one more time. So we're just trying to constrain their options. Alright, one ring's going to ding them. And they have to think about Fable for a second. Like, they end up not pitching anything, because obviously Bowmasters would tear them to shreds. They play an unstable amulet, so opponent's trying to basically look at as many cards without drawing right now. Now, they do find a removal spell, but I don't know if this is a misplay or what, but they end up just activating the ring into double Bowmasters, and so I start assigning the triggers and they just pack it in. So if you love seeing grind out games with black enchantments, please ring a Gix that like button, and we're on to the next one. And that was just an epic game. I absolutely loved that game. And just a classic turn 1 Thoughtseize against us, taking Bowmasters. Unfortunate, but we can live with that. This is a decision we have to run into sometimes, like which MDFCs to put into play. Decide the Boggart Trawler is more relevant, especially against black. And this is a vulnerability of MDFCs, that they can be, like, they're lands that can be Thoughtseized. So, alright, opponent goes Dark Ritual, Cycle, Troll of Cause of Doom. It makes sense the cards they are taking now, because taking Accursed Marauder means that we don't have a clean answer against their Troll of Cause of Doom, so. I'm also sort of shocked that they're running Inquisition. I feel like the meta keeps moving further and further away from where that card's good, with all the pitch elementals and, you know, Leyline Binding, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to play a slew of creatures, so double Marionette Apprentices. So we can actually block the troll, but we can't kill it right now. So this is a snap no block for me. I think I missed that in the editing room, but draw another Boggart Trawler that's at least going to like make them think a second when they attack in with troll, and you know, we're just going to nuke their graveyard. They can still reanimate stuff from our graveyard, so at least now, like, we can complete the triple block and hopefully trade with the troll, but the opponent just sends right on in. Now, I think about this. Now, the Bowmasters blows this right open because they can nuke the trawler and then the other creatures, and it's really bad. But I figure this configuration survives, like, Fatal Push, and the opponent makes a big error right there, just spewing off a Fatal Push on the trawler, which has mana value 3, so you can target it, but you can't kill it without Revolt, and so somehow end up successfully blocking there, and the opponent's going to eat a lot of Apprentice triggers right here, falling out to 5. So at least, like, shuts the reanimate troll option down. Think about what to do here. I'm going to smash in with Apprentice. So the opponent actually had a way out with, assuming they didn't, I guess if they, yeah, it depends on if they, I guess they did have both Fatal Pushes, so they did have a way out of it. They just sort of made a mistake and got trapped. But we capitalized on those here. So attacking with our Boggart Trawler, and this is the power of MDFCs to give you more action in your deck right here. So opponent packs it in. That was a tough one. The fact that you're able to get rid of Marauder, though we had a lot of outs to holding them off. So I think we are pretty well set in that game. Now, we have the turn 1 scam, so we're going to go ahead and fire that off. Pitch casting Shambling Ghast. Now, note the opponent has already mulliganed. So, mulliganed twice, actually. Yeah, they see the grief and they pack in. Like, we were about to... They sensed what was going to go on. It still makes me laugh when I see these quick concessions, though, but that's just the nature of the beast right now in Timeless. Alright, turn 1 fetch land from the opponent. Playing out a Shambling Ghast. Could accelerate us into an early Sheoldred with Phyrexian Tower. So I'll have to pay attention to that. Alright, opponent plays a land, it passes. A little bit worried here, you know, obviously opponent has instant speed interaction. Looks like they're blue-white control. So instead of going for like a Sheoldred right here, I'm gonna just toss out a Chthonian Nightmare, which should appear threatening, and it did prompt a counterspell from the opponent, and we have an extra one, so opponent's going to fire off Expressive Iteration. So they are at least Jeskai. Alright, they play a fetch land and pass. Now we draw another really strong 4-mana play in the One Ring. And I was very excited to slam Sheoldred, but now I realize, honestly, the One Ring's probably much stronger against them than Sheoldred. Sheoldred, they probably have a ton of ways to kill it, but One Ring, they're not going to have that many ways to deal with it. And I'm hoping they don't have like a Spell Pierce right here. That'd be really bad. But they end up just getting a Surveil land. So we get our One Ring past their counter magic. Feeling pretty good about them. And they could have like a Leyline Binding and eat it up. Dark Ritual is really nice. That's going to allow us to just dump our hand out next turn. And the opponent slams their own One Ring. Alright, so One Ring showdown. But the opponent is at much lower life than us. So their rings would be much more dangerous to them. Alright, so we draw. Note that there was a priority pass when they're tapped out, so that indicates like a pitch elemental or something like that from the opponent. I don't know if I actually caught that in the moment, but upon editing discovered that. So I'm gonna slam Sheoldred the Apocalypse before the ring activation. Might as well just gain all that extra life. It does constrain our options post ring draw a bit, so pad our life total a little bit here. Alright, decided to go and play Shambling Ghast here, and now the opponent has ring protection. That's why we're not trying to grief them right now. So end up just playing out Chthonian Nightmare, and opponent throws out a Solitude to get rid of Sheoldred, because that that's going to really interfere with their ring activations. So, and check the graveyard, and there's nothing to bring back with Nightmare, so we pass to them. Now the opponent's painful mana base combined with the One Ring is gonna be, it's gonna make it hard for them. Even like our sort of measly aggression with 1/1s, like they're gonna end up mattering. Like every life point's gonna matter in this situation. So we're gonna fire off the One Ring first to see what we get. All right. Now unfortunately the Sheoldred got exiled. Now what I'm doing here is I'm purposely pitching Grief because we have an Undying effect, and it's just allows us to spend a whole lot of mana. So we're going to try and scam them right here. Alright, here comes Snapcaster Mage. So they have that counter spell in their graveyard. So they're going to protect their hand right here. Alright, so they thought they were safe spending those resources. Little do they know, we have a second Chthonian Nightmare. And so that's going to allow us to bring Grief right back into play. Now sometimes you have to do complicated loops to like generate enough energy. Other times you just play double Nightmare and then you can get enough. Now as we're completing this Nightmare loop right here, let me know in the comments what's a creature that you're excited to pair with Chthonian Nightmare. There's so many good ones, and I'm just falling in love with this card. It's amazing. We grief them, and Expressive Iteration is clearly the strongest card, and the opponent's hand is very interaction light right here. I'm going to play Greedy Freebooter. And you see me about to set an upkeep step, and I do set one, but then I realize they could draw a bunch of cards with the ring, and anyway, decide. So we have like sort of a draw step discard right here by casting Malakir Rebirth on Grief and sacrificing it to Phyrexian Tower. Now when the opponent activates their fetch, they're down a land right here. They've drawn all their cards with One Ring, so I decide to go for it and sacrifice, do the play I just outlined with Malakir Rebirth, sacrificing it to Phyrexian Tower. So we're hoping to like snipe them. Its opponent's gonna fire tune the narrative. They're gonna need instant speed spells to get around Grief right here. And look what we find. Okay, so One Ring and Flage. I decided to take the One Ring because that can the ring protection and anyway, it's just really strong. Now Flage is also really great right here. Our Phyrexian Tower's offline, so they're gonna gain the life. And they do have it set up to be escaped. So we have to be mindful of that. But we have a really healthy life total, so we can just keep activating the ring and push our life total advantage. Double Dark Ritual. We didn't really get a ton of action. So trying to think about what to do, and it seems pretty clear, just leverage all the mana we can and see how many Nightmare loops we can complete. So play Nightmare and play a Freebooter, using up the Dark Ritual mana first, and then realizing I probably should attack before starting to sacrifice stuff. So checking out what we have, and honestly, Grief is like the only interesting thing we have right now. So we're gonna bring Grief back, sacrifice a Freebooter, which gives us our own little bit of value. Like it's in here to help accelerate us towards like One Ring and Sheoldred and stuff. And honestly, like our life total is in no danger. We're just gonna keep racking up counters on this ring we have. So I bought him the extra copy. The opponent still has just been drawing lands. So we grab their Tune the Narrative. I think the opponent should have used it in response, because if they draw another land, then it's just free lands for them. It gets another land off the top, and if it's a spell, so be it. So the opponent falls to 5 life, and very, very purposely keeping up Phyrexian Tower here, because we know they're going to most likely escape Flage, and we want to deny them the life gain if they target our creatures. Alright, so the opponent does escape it. Now I think what they should have done is targeted our life total. Like I know we have some threats on the battlefield. I decided to try and really punish them here by use the Undying, use Malakir Rebirth. And the opponent goes for the swords in response. And we definitely don't want it exiled. So what I'm going to do is now Phyrexian Tower away the Grief. And all we wanted was to fizzle the Flage life gain, because the opponent has a ton of counters on their One Ring right now. So we fizzled the life gain, and the opponent realizes they can't get out of it, and they pack it in. So that worked out pretty nicely, a win against Jeskai control, and we jump into the next game. So we can technically like pitch cast Grief, but we can't like scam them right now. We don't have any Malakir Rebirths. What I'm doing here is acting as if I can do it, just to influence the way they play. And you know, we've already seen that it might just prompt a concession anyway, so we'll see how this goes. And the opponent has a very interesting hand. Now, some of you may already understand what's going on here. I didn't realize it till partway through this match, but the opponent is basically combining Torpor Orb effects with Theros Titans. And so the thrall they have is to enable their Uro to come into play really early. Basically, they can skip the escape process. Now, Deathrite Shaman is super strong against graveyard strategies. That's why I took it. But the opponent honestly just has a stacked hand. Like, Deathrite sort of does it all. It can police our graveyard and accelerate them. But policing our graveyard, being a Chthonian Nightmare deck, like, is just really bad for us. So they're going to attack in here. Opponent is holding up their thrall, and like we have like Boggart Trawler, and you know, it seems like it'd be good, like, oh yeah, we can snipe the Uro in their graveyard, but the chances are that Uro is never going to hit their graveyard with their like Torpor Orb creatures. So I throw out the Boggart Trawler, and I'm surprised that they didn't flash in their thrall just to counter our graveyard exile right here, but they just let it happen. They decide that the Surveil is more like... It means that they're hungry for lands. So here's Strict Proctor. Sort of another Torpor Orb kind of creature. So that's what's going on here. Attacking with everyone... Alright, the opponent just takes it. Now, I actually wanted one of the X1s to die to get the extra mana. So, end up deciding to pitch cast Grief. Now this is an instance where Strict Proctor is actually helping us out because, and it takes me a while to sort out which one's which, but we let it counter the Evoke trigger and pay for the discard trigger. So we take away the Uro from their hand, but the opponent does have a Null Drifter, which is exceptionally strong. Works really well on this kind of deck because the draw is on the cast trigger, and so Proctor's only going to cancel out or counter the Evoke trigger. So, very interesting deck from the opponent. So I'm going to attack it in this manner. The reason I do so is I figured the opponent would block in some manner like this. And then we can just slam Phyrexian Tower, sacrifice the Shambling Ghast to finish off the Null Drifter. But I'm not enjoying how this is developing right now because... the opponent has so many cards in it. We have nothing. So we're really, really hoping to ride that One Ring to victory that we have on top of our deck. So opponent plays a land. And they're going to go ahead and Swords the Grief. Because they're denying us the mana off Phyrexian Tower. Or being able to like put it in our graveyard. So that was a good, keen play from them. So very excited to slam the One Ring right here. Opponent only has 2 unknown cards. But unfortunately for us, one of them that they have is Mana Drain. And that is really tough right there. That also, you know, was the last card they needed to bring back Uro. And they can use the Mana Drain mana to pay for the card draw trigger and the life gain trigger. So now all of a sudden they have Uro, and you know we did draw Takenuma. We don't have like Accursed Marauder or anything like that. But it turns out that the Torpor Orb-esque creatures are exceptionally strong against us because, you know, Accursed Marauder has an ETB, Orcish Bowmasters, Grief. Like, it really does make our life difficult for most of our key creatures. And this is, you know, it feels like it's slipping away. So Uro is starting to go off. It's rebuilding their life total. It's keeping their hand full. And they're not even playing lands. Like, we know that they have all action. So that is not good for us, you could say. And we do have Grief plus Malakir Rebirth. Trying to see if there's anything fancy we can do. Like, gonna just play. It's gonna get its discard trigger countered by Strict Proctor, but just trying to get the creature into play. But the opponent over there has exile removal. Like, we couldn't even try to Malakir Rebirth it, and it wouldn't have mattered so much because the discard is a big reason why you play Grief, and it wouldn't have been able to make them discard. So Uro and Strict Proctor gets in again. So our window's closing quickly. Like, we're gonna need something right now to get out of this. And the opponent discards a Spell Snare, which is not a good sign for us. But we do have Orcish Bowmasters. Like, we're not out of it yet. So in response to the draw trigger, I'm gonna play Bowmasters, and we can pay the Proctor tax. But the opponent has a backup Spell Snare, and that is it for us. We pack it in. I mean, I love grindy graveyard decks, and this deck is just perfect for that. I was exceptionally impressed with Chthonian Nightmare. I really do think it's gonna be like a fixture in like the timeless metagame. It is just super strong, and you saw the situations it was getting us out of, and often it was the card we most wanted to draw. So this card lived up to the hype. Very, very strong, and really like how this sort of shell worked out together. You could see I considered like a self-mill route, but decided like we fill our graveyard naturally pretty well, and you didn't need to go as hard. Like, obviously if you're self-building, you get more better targets more often, but didn't seem quite necessary, so I didn't go for that here, and it allows us to get treasure production, to get 1 rings and stuff going on. So just very interesting. I think I could see possibly wanting more Sheoldreds, especially with 1 rings. Not quite sure at the cut, but I think you do want like a 3rd or maybe even a 4th Sheoldred in here, just as like a really potent target to bring back. You can run into some awkward draws with like too many of the 1-drops, but the only card in the sideboard I really would consider adding is Woe Strider. It's one of those key 1 creature, 2 body things that help you really go off with Nightmare, and it's a 0 mana sacrifice outlet to protect your stuff from exile removal, and it escapes. So if you could squeeze this one in there, I could see this being pretty decent in this shell. But yeah, that's the deck. Thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to see even more nonsense, please consider subscribing. And if you're already subscribed, thank you for your support. Your engagement with the channel helps me know what the people want. Thank you.